Hello everyone, Donkey Storm here, and today I'm bringing you an exciting guide about one of my favorite specs of all time, and one that has undergone a lot of changes in Shadowlands, the Balance Druid. In this video we're going to be looking at changes to the playstyle, new baseline abilities, talent changes, and covenants. The goal being to see if Balance Druid is going to be an enjoyable spec to play in Shadowlands. The footage you'll see today is from the public test realm where all current class changes are live, but so are Azerite traits and your Heart of Azeroth, though I won't be using any of them to try and get a fair feel for the spec. Remember, if you like what you see here today, please hit that thumbs up button. To see more of my Shadowlands content down the road, please subscribe. Alright, let's get into it. The very first thing worth mentioning about Balance Druid is that the core of the playstyle and rotation has changed back to the Eclipse System, most similar to what we saw in Wrath of the Lich King. Casting Wrath twice outside of an Eclipse gives you Lunar Eclipse, which reduces the cast time of Starfire by 15% and increases the AoE damage by 100%. Casting Starfire twice outside of Eclipse gives you Solar Eclipse, which reduces Wrath cast time by 15% and increases its damage by 20%. Basically, you go back and forth between the two empowerments in order to take advantage of their buffs as much as possible. Casting Star Surge will extend the duration of the eclipse that you're currently in by 2 seconds. You'll be doing this while continuing to maintain your dots on your target. Your big cooldown, Celestial Alignment, now allows both eclipses to be active at once and gives you 15% crit chance for 20 seconds. The goal here is going to be to spend as much time in Solar Eclipse for single target encounters and Lunar Eclipse for AoE encounters as possible, which is going to mean thoughtful spending of your astral power on Star Surge to extend the correct eclipses. Starfall has also undergone some changes, for the better in my opinion. It's no longer a targeted ability, but simply affects the ground around you, and best of all, it has no target cap, unlike so many AoE abilities of other classes. My thoughts after spending some time playing with the rotation was that it felt a bit slow and clunky, to be perfectly honest. Also, from a UI perspective, I felt it was really awkward, although there will surely be add-ons to correct that. The numbers of Wraths and Starfires you need to cast is signified on top of the ability's icon with a little number. This got really confusing at first, as my Wrath is bound to key 2, and it showed another 2 when I needed to cast it twice, and my Starfire is bound to key 3, but it had a little 1 underneath it when I needed to cast it once. Anyway, overall, it just felt a little bit poorly designed. From a positive side, it's nice to feel completely in control of your rotation and choosing which eclipse you want to try and stay in for the given encounter. I feel like the Balance Druid rotation lacks a certain oomph. That feel you get when you hit your big ability and watch something really cool happen on your screen, like hitting Metamorphosis or Colossus Smash. In comparison, no buttons I hit while playing Balance made me feel like I was really putting out the deeps. Nothing made me feel the power of the spec from a class flavor standpoint. For some players that won't matter, but for me, I enjoy frills like that. We'll see what legendaries and conduits can do to spice up this spec, a topic for another video. I still felt a bit incomplete to me as I played it. There's definitely more to talk about with Balance Druid. With the addition of unpruned abilities, abilities that were once spec specific and now available to all specs, all types of druids are going to benefit greatly in the utility department, as the class can just do so many things. The coming of Shadowlands, Balance Druids now have access to Ferocious Bite, Barkskin, Cyclone, Stampeding Roar, Iron Fur as baseline spells. Most notably of these is Cyclone and Stampeding Roar, a sort of new CC in Cyclone, and a group-wide speed boost definitely up balance in the utility department, a place where druids have always been really good to begin with. While the Balance talent tree may not look super different at first glance, many of the talents have been indeed reworked. The first ones to note is Nature's Balance, which has been slightly changed, now generating 1 astral power every 2 seconds instead of 2 every 3, and Shooting Stars now generating 2 astral power instead of 4. For Balance, there is an overall reduction to how much astral power we are generating in this expansion, reducing the amount of spenders we're able to cast. This likely has to do with the new way that Star Surge interacts with the Eclipse System, as well as how Starfall now works, so don't consider it a hard nerf just yet. All of your affinity talents have been changed, and it's for the better. With things like Ferocious Bite and Iron Fur now baseline, more room's freed up for affinity talents to grant additional abilities. Couple this with the new Heart of the Wild talent, and you've got some serious potential to do some cool off-roll stuff. The affinities grant all the same abilities as before, but now Restoration Affinity grants Ursol's Vortex, Guardian Affinity grants Incapacitating Roar, and Feral Affinity grants Maim. Adding in Heart of the Wild, Resto Affinity spells do 30% more healing and cost 50% less mana. Guardian Affinity Bear Form gets 20% stamina, multiple uses of Iron Fur, and 2 charges of Frenzied Regeneration. And Feral Affinity gets 30% additional damage. Critical strikes from combo point generators give an additional combo point. Druids are going to be able to pull off some pretty crazy stuff with these combinations of talents, and I think Heart of the Wild sounds like it's going to be a ton of fun to play with. Soul of the Forest has also gotten a change. Now makes Eclipse's cast time reduction increased by 5%, and the duration of each eclipse is increased by 3 seconds. This is going to allow you to stay in your desired eclipse longer and will probably be a strong single target talent. The Fury of the Loon talent receives a nerf to its secondary targets, so I'm not going to lie, this talent sounds kind of bad now. It's an AoE talent with reduced AoE damage. Why? Stellar Drift now increases Starfall's duration rather than radius and allows you to cast while moving while Starfall is active. This is for sure a buff to the talent, making this row of talents overall a bit more competitive. Finally, let's get into Covenants, our borrowed power abilities for the Shadowlands expansion. You can only access one of these abilities depending on which Covenant you choose to align yourself with. First off, the Kyrian ability, Kindred Spirits, forms a bond with an ally. Every 1 minute you may empower the bond for 10 seconds, granting you an effect based on your partner's role and granting them an effect based on your role. The balanced version of the ability energizes your bonded partner, granting them 30% of your damage as additional arcane damage, healing, or absorption. You gain a ramping increase to intellect after activating the ability. So it also works if you bond with yourself, although to a lesser extent. This is interesting. It kind of harkens back to the old days of symbiosis, but you don't actually get to use one of your partner's abilities. Honestly, the description of this ability could really be improved. Instead, it acts almost like an on-use trinket or item, which is a bit less exciting. I can still see its uses, though, and it's pretty cool that it affects more than just yourself. The Vithir ability, Ravenous Frenzy, makes spells you cast increase your damage, healing, and haste by 2%, stacking for 20 seconds. If you spend a second and a half idle, the frenzy overcomes you, consuming 3% of your health per stack and stunning you for 1 second, and then ending, which could be extremely dangerous. This one sounds pretty cool as long as you aren't going to experience any downtime. I like the idea of having to spam spells to keep increasing your damage and haste. I imagine this is going to be a fun spell to play with, and just at first glance, I think this one could end up being the go-to for balance. The Necrolord ability, Adaptive Swarm, allows you to command a swarm that heals or deals shadow damage over 12 seconds to a target and increases the effectiveness of your periodic effects on them by 20%. Upon expiration, it jumps to another target within 25 yards, alternating between friend and foe up to 3 times. So a pretty cool mix of damaging and healing ability that jumps around after the initial effect wears off. It's going to improve your Sunfire and Moonfire by 20%. Interesting idea here. We'll have to see how the damage performs to see whether or not it's worth taking, but a pretty interesting idea. Finally, we've got the Night Fae ability, Convoke Spirits, which calls upon the Night Fae for an eruption of energy, channeling a rapid flurry of 16 Druid spells and abilities over 4 seconds. For the balanced version of the spell, it's supposed to favor Star Surge and Starfall. So as you channel for 4 seconds, 16 spells get cast, which may include Starfall and Star Surge, but also a whole bunch of other random stuff from other specs. This one's been talked about a lot and has received some changes over the course of alpha and beta, the problem being that, according to a blue post, the ability feels cooler if it casts a wide array of druid stuff, but players, surprise, want it to cast more of the main spec spells, so it's actually good. While it sounds like now it supposedly favors more main spec spells than it used to, I think we're going to need to see some damage numbers or sims before we can trust Convoke Spirits. So what's the verdict on Balance Druid? I can see why a lot of people in the community are unhappy with balance in Shadowlands at the moment. The rotation feels lacking and slow, and the Coven abilities feel a bit all over the place. Having done a lot of these videos now, it seems like Covenants get a little murky when they have to cater to a class that can fulfill a variety of roles. It's like they need to have a healing aspect, and they need to have a damage aspect, they need to have a tanking aspect, and since Druids can fulfill more roles than any other class, I'm not surprised that their Covenants are kind of strange. Ravenous Frenzy seems like the early contender for a go-to ability to me at the moment, and it does look pretty fun, but overall, I'd love to see Balance Druid be one of the specs that gets a little more love before the expansion drops. What do you think, Laser Chickens? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, hit that thumbs up button if you like what you saw here today, and subscribe for more Shadowlands content from me in the future. Until next time, this has been Donkey Storm, and thanks for watching.